everyone. So I ummed and ahed about whether or not I was going to film this video for a really long time because I kind of just thought that no one would really care. But then I started thinking, like, I watch these type of videos and I absolutely love eyeshadow, hence I have a lot of eyeshadow palettes. So if I would like to watch a video like this, there has to be at least one other person who would also like to watch a video like this. So this is for that one little person out there who also likes to watch eyeshadow palette collections. So basically I'm just going to run through all of the eyeshadow palettes that I own and give you a little bit of information about them, whether or not I like them and whether or not I would recommend them to you. I'm not going to do swatches in this video today because the lighting in this room is absolutely horrendous. It's pouring with rain outside, so my lighting's horrible. Okay, so these are all of my eyeshadow palettes. I'm going to start with my little baby ones. This is a Smashbox Photo Op eyeshadow trio in the shade Multi Flash. So it's got three little shades, Naked, Crisp, and Dough, and it's just a miniature. To be completely honest, I haven't really used this palette ever, so I don't have a whole lot to say about it, but if you've ever used Smashbox eyeshadows, let me know what you think down below. Next I have a drugstore quad. This is a Maybelline Big Eyes by Eyestudio quad in Luminous Browns. It's got 4 shades, as you can see, and I absolutely love this little palette. I used to be so into it. I used to wear this orange all the time, but basically it's one of the best quality pigmented eyeshadow formulas I've ever come across in the Australian drugstore, so I highly recommend these little palettes. They come in 4 or 5 different colorways. This is the most neutral one and I absolutely love it. Next we have a drugstore Quint. This gets a lot of airtime in my videos because I've been trying to use that for a long time. This is the Revlon PhotoReady Primer Plus Shadow Quint in Watercolors. As you can see, I'm trying to finish up that shade there. It's kind of designed like an eye, so that's supposed to be your priming base, and then those are the colors that you like blend up your eye, and that's like an added top coat, just pure glitter shade. I like this Quint. I used to have another one in a different shade. I think it was called Muse that I eventually decluttered, but I'm trying to use it up. It's not great quality, but I think the range of the PhotoReady Quints is actually pretty interesting, the color selections they have, and I'm pretty sure a few of them are matte, which is really difficult to find in the drugstore. Next is the Cult Classics Urban Decay Naked 2 Basics palette. I picked this up when I was overseas last year and I immediately put it in my cart. This was before Urban Decay was available in Australia, and I actually really like this little palette. The kick up on these shadows is absolutely phenomenal. Like, there's so much kick up when you use these, but they blend really well, and if you're looking for a matte basic little set of shadows, this one and the original Naked one are actually really good. I just prefer this one because I think there's more shade range. The original one has 2 shades that look almost identical in my opinion. And I'm just typically more of a cool eyeshadow color wearer, so that's why I went for this one. Also, I have too many matte blacks to get another matte black. So that is more of like a chocolate brown, a cool toned brown, not a black. And that's what I definitely preferred to the original Naked Basics. Plus, it is very compact, like everyone said when it first came out. It's very slim, very small, very easy to travel or just to have around. Next is my first limited edition palette. This is the Dior, I think it was called Holiday Couture eyeshadow palette. This came out in Holiday 2014, and it was the only Holiday 2014 product that I purchased. I saved up for it, I was very excited. This was like my first deluxe kind of luxury product purchase, and I absolutely love it. I purchased it because these are exactly the shades I love to wear. It's a cool tone, sparkly taupe, a matte dark brown, a medium cool tone matte brown, and then a very sparkly white cream shade, which is exactly the eye look I would wear every day if I could. I've gotten a lot of use out of this palette, but as you can see, there's still so much product left, and while it was like an arm and a leg to buy, I do really love this little quad, and I love taking it traveling because it is so easy just to put this look together. Next, we have the newest addition to my eyeshadow palette collection. This is the Kat Von D Shade and Light Eye Contour Quad in the shade Sage. This comes in 4 different colorways and was just recently released in Sephora Australia. This is what the Sage colorway looks like. It's got a matte yellow cream, a matte kind of gray, I guess, it's a pure gray, a matte deep forest green, and a matte kind of khaki, ochre, orangey, tan color. This is an incredibly different kind of color scheme for me. I don't purchase color schemes like this at all, but something about it really stood out to me. I love the look of these two shades in particular. This is a very, very unique deep green, and this is just a very different shade for me, but I also don't come across it a lot. I feel like most shades kind of reach towards this instead of this kind of really warm tan color. It's actually really unique to my collection, and it's buttery smooth, like so incredibly soft. These matte shades are absolutely beautiful, as all Kat Von D is apparently, but this is the only eyeshadow I've tried from her in the past. Really, really love this. Also think it's really funny that it's in this like little coffin kind of shaped palette. I just really like this, and I'm looking forward to having some more time to play around with this because it is really new to my collection. Next we have my second to last drugstore palette. This is the Maybelline The Nudes palette. This created quite a stir when it was released in the US and then again when it was released in Australia. It's got 12 neutral kind of bronzy, browny, like very naked palette one-esque shades, but it's a drugstore palette, which means it's widely available to a lot of people and at a much better price range for a lot of people. I haven't played around with this palette a whole lot, to be completely honest, as I got it this year and I have been doing the Pan That palette this year, and this one just hasn't made it into the rotation very much, but I think it's just really impressive that the drugstore is starting to make things like these palettes. They finally cottoned on to the fact that people like having eyeshadows in palettes and not just little duos and singles. So I think this is just a really great step for the drugstore generally. Now we've got more palettes from like Models Prefer and L'Oreal that are kind of catching up as well, but this was the first and I think that's really impressive. Next is one of my absolute favorites. This is the Tarte Energy Noir palette, and this came out in 2015, but I still think is kind of available in some Sephora Australias. So this is what it looks like. It's got 6 eyeshadow shades, 2 liner slash eyeshadow shades, a blush, and a highlight, which you could also use as an eyeshadow. I bought this palette because as soon as I saw it on Temptalia, I was like, that's me. That's me in a palette. That's everything that I would ever want, especially because I find that eyeshadow and kind of face palette mashups always have a blush and a bronzer, and I don't really use bronzer as much as I use highlight, so I was so thankful that they put a highlight and not a bronzer in this palette. I absolutely love this palette. This is the one that I take with me when I go on trips absolutely anywhere because it's basically my entire face in a little palette and I absolutely love it. The quality of these shadows is really impressive, much better than any of the Tarte limited editions that have come out that people have complained about, and I just really love the mix of colors. It's a very cool toned, very purple, very brown, kind of taupey shades, and I absolutely love it. This is the last drugstore palette in this video. This is the cult classic Wet n Wild Comfort Zone Oct. I don't know. It's got 8 shade, 8 pan palette. This everyone absolutely raves about, whether it's because of the quality, the range of shades, or the fact that it has a MAC Blue Brown or Club dupe up here. So this is a palette I picked up also while I was overseas because Wet n Wild is not available in Australia, and I basically got it because everyone says it's the best thing ever. It's the only Wet n Wild product that I own, and I do actually really like it. My favorite shade is this one here, the eyelid shade. It's kind of like a peachy orange, and it's very unique to my collection, very like Too Faced Sweet Peach-esque, and I just really love the way it looks all over the eyelid. The rest of the shades I haven't played with all that much because I'm not really a green eyeshadow wearer. I don't wear it all that often, hence I bought that Sage palette from Kat Von D to experiment a bit with greens, and I think I will be experimenting a bit more later this year with some greens because I really want to pull this out and give it another go. It's got a lot of really nice shades in it and the quality is pretty excellent, and look, I just kind of want to give it a more of a try. Next we've got one from Stila. This is the Eyes Are the Window Shadow Palette in the colorway Soul. I got given this by a friend when she wanted to declutter it. I really wanted this palette for a while because it looks quite kind of like a really nice mix between cool and warm shades. It's pretty neutral in my opinion. It also has the much raved about Kitten, and I've always wanted to try that shade but didn't really want to get it in a single, and then once Stila discontinued the like In the Know, In the Light palettes, I didn't didn't want to buy just the single, so this kind of suited me perfectly. I will say what I think about this palette is there's a bit of an overabundance of mid-tones in it. I think there are a lot of shades that you could use swept all over the lid and not a lot of shades you can use to easily add definition. For example, this shade and this shade are almost identical in tone and they're pretty well identical in deepness, which means they really fulfill the same role in any sort of eye look, and that kind of seems like a bit of a waste of space to me to have two shades that are so similar in both look and in use. There's also quite a lot of shimmery shades in this palette, which is okay, but I will say the breakdown between shimmers and mattes is much better than any of the Urban Decay palettes, so if that's something that bothers you with the Urban Decay palette, you might prefer something like this. Next is the second to newest palette in my collection, and it was featured in the same haul as that Kat Von D one. This is the Zoeva Mixed Metals palette. I purchased this earlier this month because I've been lusting after it forever. I think the shades in this palette are so beautiful and so unique. I absolutely love it, and I finally purchased it when I had a coupon to Sephora Australia. So as you can see, these are a lot of jewel tones, a lot of metal tones, and they're all kind of named after like metal ideas, I guess, metal-esque things. My favorite colors in the palette, the standouts, are this red, which is copper plate, this acid yellow, which is neo brass, and this shade platinum, which is a very, very bright green silver. It doesn't look all that impressive in the pan, but when it's swatched, it's absolutely stunning. I did a post on my blog with some swatches of this palette and the Kat Von D, so I'll link those down below if you're interested in seeing how they look swatched out, because they're stunning. The only thing I don't love about this palette is there's a matte black onyx, and I just don't need another matte black. I hate when palettes put matte blacks in them because, look, I have 50,000 of them and I never finish them. I've hit pan in one and I'll probably never hit pan again. The other thing is this shade up here, Warm Silver, the lightest shade. I was really excited for this as an inner corner highlight, but it's just not very bright. It's quite a muted shimmer, and I wanted it to be like really outstanding next to all of these colors. It just wasn't quite what I wanted it to be. But otherwise, absolutely love this palette. Cannot wait to play around with this a little bit more. I think this is a perfect party palette. This is like exactly what the kind of looks I want to put on when I go out. So that's why I love this. We're going into some classic palette territory now. Next one is the Lorac Pro. This is the original, and this bad boy has seen some serious loving. Last year when everyone was panning this palette, I decided to see how much use I could get out of it myself, which meant that I did hit pan in cream, nude, champagne, and light bronze. And those were the first shades I had ever hit pan in an eyeshadow palette, so I was incredibly excited about that. I've since dropped the palette in Smash Nude, which is fantastic because it's my favorite shade in the entire palette, but it's repressed and just looking kind of ugly. I also finished up Cream, which is the only shade I have ever finished in an eyeshadow palette, so that's pretty impressive for me. Other than that, I have massive dips in ones over here, and I absolutely love Light Bronze and Pewter. They're two of my favorites. So I do love this palette, and I haven't used it in so long because I used it for months and months and months last year. I decided to put it away and give some other palettes some love, but it's such a classic, and I honestly find it's the easiest palette in my collection to make a huge range of eye looks without even having to think about it. So I think that's one of the main strong points of this palette. I think that's why it's such a popular palette. I would highly recommend it to anyone, and I'm absolutely dying to get my hands on the 2 and maybe the 3. The 3 looks really nice as well, but Lorac is really hard to get my hands on in Australia because it's only stocked at Ulta, and Ulta does not ship overseas. Not even with the forwarding services, like they cancel your order straight away. So I just need to get people to go over to the US and pick them up for me. But absolutely love this palette. It's pretty much a huge ripoff for the price because the eyeshadow pans are like half or a third the size of most other eyeshadow pans, but they retail for the same price, so pretty big ripoff, but absolutely love this palette. And another cult classic, this is the Urban Decay Naked 2. This was pretty much one of my first eyeshadow palette purchases because I obviously watched YouTube and I saw the hype and it was like too much for me. I had to get it. So this is the Urban Decay Naked 2. Everyone has seen this a million times, but it is a very, very cool tone, very, very sparkly palette. I used to almost exclusively wear this palette. My go-to look was chopper all over the lid with snakebite in the outer V, blended out with tease in the crease, and then booty call on the inner corner. Booty call is still one of my favorite inner corner highlights, and tease is my favorite crease shade. So I still absolutely love that look, though I haven't worn it in probably years. I don't reach for this palette all that much anymore, but I still love it, and every time I pull it out, I'm like, this is a classic. This is absolutely beautiful. Got your little matte black down at the bottom, which I never touch, but that's okay. If you don't have a naked palette, I would seriously recommend getting the one that appeals to you the most. I don't think you need to collect them all. I've never thought you needed to collect all of them of anything, let alone a set of eyeshadow palettes. But I absolutely love this palette. I will never get rid of it. It's one of my all-time favorites, and I just love it. Second to last is my Pan That palette. So this is the Balmsai palette. Purchased this overseas as well, and the shades look like this. As you can see, there's a lot of use in this palette because I'm using it for my Pan That palette challenge. Before that, I used it like less than 10 times, maybe less than 5 times, so it looked pretty much brand new. But now there are quite a few little dips in it and a lot of use, and I'm really glad to have gotten the use out of it. On the bottom, they have these little like stencils for eyebrows and eyeliner, but I've literally never used those, probably never will. But I really love the range of shades in here. I think there are some awesome colors, but also the neutrals are really nice and easy to mix in with the colors as well. So I really like this palette, and I'm hoping to reach my goal of hitting pan in every single shade by the end of the year. What I will say though is some of these shades are incredibly crumbly, especially shades like Safari and Pipeline. The two main colors of the palette are very, very crumbly, which means they apply really patchy on the eye and just fall all over your face. So really don't like the quality of those two shades, but other than that, I absolutely love Cowabunga. I think that's a great green. I like Tubular because it's a very interesting bronze shade, and I just think the rest of the colors are really nice. Those two in particular are a bit of a letdown. And the last palette's a bit of a classic, also not really. This is my MAC 15 pan palette. So this is a palette that I built myself out of all those shades. I do have 2 shades missing, as in I don't have those 2 shades, so I have a 13 pan palette technically. This took me absolutely years to build up, so don't sit there thinking that I just bought all of these in one go. As you can see, my absolute favorite is Naked Lunch, but it's quickly followed by Satin Taupe. I've got a post on my blog with all of the shades in this palette and how I think they work together. I really, really love my selection of shades. I think they're a great range of cool and neutral and warm tones, and then just like a random pop of green and a pop of purple from Star Violets. Absolutely love the shades that I have in this palette. I'm looking to probably get a blue shade to go in here, or a deeper purple and something else. I'm not sure what this palette's missing yet, but eventually I will get the other 2 and have a full 15 pans.